Hey, friends, and welcome to another episode of One Great Question. And today we have like a creative genius. I'm sure Stephen would not like me saying that, but it's true because every once in a while you'll come across an artist where you go, hold on, you do what with what? You've maybe heard of people using pastels, heard of people using woodwork. I don't know until I really came across Stephen and then saw his work, and we were connected. I mean, probably 15, 20 years ago now in Nashville. I was like, wait, you're an artist of light? And then I got to see it. Like, it was explained to me, which I would never would have understood. And then the room went dark, and then I saw an artist at work with light. And so, these visual environmental things, and Stephen has gotten to do it, in tours in the U.S., has gone all the way to places like New Zealand, just to make you jealous, when he's playing in the same places where Lord of the Rings was filmed, and everything in between has been with amazing thinkers like Beth Moore, and on tour buses raising millions of dollars for kids who need it all over the planet. And even more than all of those things, even more than the genius and the ability, is just a really kind human. And when I call him, he doesn't know or own me anything, and he says, yeah, man, let's hang out, let's have a talk. And so would love to introduce all of you guys to the wonderful Stephen Proctor. Thanks for being here, Stephen.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it. Yeah, great to meet you, everyone.
Yeah.
great to reconnect. This is fun.
Yeah.
I love it.
So when we first met, it was in Franklin, Tennessee, all those years ago, around a really fun conference. And as I said, like your magic was on full display. And then the next time I had kind of come across the work was, obviously, I was following you on social, but then you did this really interesting thing where you're like, hey, I'm gonna leave the epicenter of my work, and then I'm going to move somewhere and do something really, maybe that I don't know if anybody in your family had done this. So maybe tell the my mom and the three other people who are watching and listening to this what it is you decided to do to leave the comfort of Nashville and everything you had known.
Oh yeah, I it's so funny. Yeah, in 2017, a friend of mine who was used to live in Nashville and I was now in New York was up in Seattle. And he was like, it was this time of year. It was like end of July, dead of summer. And one thing we do, we're just like constantly complaining about the heat, the humidity, the mosquitoes, just like we're
Man,
both
the
like
South is
we both work in like video production. He's film, I'm other things. And like, here's the deal. Our backpacks are very, very heavy. People are like, hey, you want me to pick up your backpack for you? And I'm like, sure, here you go. And I'm like, and they're like, good Lord, what's in this? And I'm like, that's a light day. That's a
yeah.
light day. Like that's nothing. They're like, what do you got in here? And I'm like, my work. Tech is heavy.
The
Anyway,
weighted vest trend that hit, you were like, I've been planning for this for 15 years. I'm ahead of the
jeez.
curve.
So anyway, he's up in Seattle and is like, dude, it is gorgeous up here. I'm outside all day long, not breaking a sweat, and mosquitoes are not carrying me away. And I was like, I'd been in Nashville for, I don't know, 14, 13 years at that point. 15, I lost count. But I was like, dude, I think I'm ready for a change. Like, I love Nashville, but I don't like it right now. A lot of my people are there. They're still there. I still go there all the time for work and, get to hang out with people. But I was like, man, especially since I started flying drones and getting really into like landscape cinematography, aerial photography, bringing that into my live event work. I, I was like, I'm tired of, working with nature imagery or create, beautiful imagery, of outside all the time and not being immersed in it myself. And I was constantly being immersed in, rush hour traffic 24/7, Nashville, overpriced drinks, like pretentious restaurants and coffee shops, I was just like, at some point, it's when it's all new and exciting and the growth, it's like, especially if you've been in Nashville, I moved to Nashville back when they would call it Old Nashville, and now it's like hashtag New Nashville, which got really expensive. Anyway, I just at some point you just go like, I'm getting really bored here, and if I continue to get bored, even though I'm busy and I love my people here, but I'm getting creatively, even spiritually, mentally, I'm getting bored with this mecca of creativity that tends to be, and I love Nashville, but like this entertainment culture and other entertainment cultures are like this in other places, but it starts to get very inward facing and kind of navel gazing. And I was just like, there's a bigger, wider world out there, guys. And like, I know everyone travels, in Nashville, but like, there's a scene in Lord of the Rings to just go, just like, let's just get right into like the best story ever told. Lord of the Rings. Remember when, you know, at the very beginning when Bilbo tells Gandalf, "I want to see mountains again, Gandalf, mountains," and then find some place to finish my book, or in the book, find some place to rest. I started to really feel that. I was just like, I want to see mountains again. I'm ready to see trees and forests and rivers and lakes, like, and I do get to do that some with my travels. Um, but I'm ready for it to be the norm and not the exception. And I wonder what would happen. And I asked this question to myself: what would that look like for that to become my normal, to where I was reconnected to nature and fully immersed in it in my own way, in a setting of my, um, maybe not just the setting of my choosing, but just something different that's a little bit slower and quieter and more majestic to look at, rather than the convergence of Interstate 40 and 65, which my house sat right next to. I could just constant interstate, just everywhere you go, just traffic, noise, city. And I don't regret that part of my life, but I was ready to move on, and I was starting to get bored. And I knew if I was going to get bored, then I get cynical and I start, you know, cracking jokes and being humorous in ways that are not as healthy. And then I just get depressed and angry, like, and that was definitely happening a lot in summertime, because I don't want to walk outside and just completely just melt into a puddle, especially having just gotten out of the shower, like, and you're just inside, just, cranking that AC. I was just like, this is just affecting me way too much. And the Pacific Northwest is like, I'm in Washington State, and I've found a place in the Columbia River Gorge just outside of Portland, Oregon, and um, also just being surrounded so much by. Um, I'm a Christian. I still am, but when you are living in a place that is defined by that, and it is the norm instead of the exception, it comes with its own shadow side to me, and it comes with its own baggage, especially when you work in the industry that is, and there's multiple industries in Nashville, but Christianity and religion is a big industry there, for better and for worse. There's good things about that, and there's not good things about that it creates. And if I don't know if you've turned on the news, but Portland, Oregon is not exactly the Christian Mecca, and things are a little different politically out here. And I like that. I like being in a place that, where people have different thoughts, and you can't just expect that most people are going to church on Sunday, and just getting involved with just real people. Anyway, I'm rabbit trailing, but all
No,
that
that's
to say
great.
is I I I decided to go on an adventure, and to say, you know what, I love Nashville, but I need to kind of see what's going on out in some other places. And so I gave it a year trial, just to be like, I didn't sell the house yet. I just put that on the Airbnb, let it do its thing, make me some money, got an apartment in Portland, and made sure the early midlife crisis wasn't, too severe, and I wasn't making a rash decision. But then I was like, I love it out here. I absolutely love it. And so that began a whole adventure of getting a cabin, which I'm sitting in here, built out in uh, the woods, which you can see out here.
Man, yeah,
There's a nice
your own
forest.
private Rivendell there.
My own, and I named it Rivendell because I'm a Lord of the Rings nerd. And if we talk about Lord of the Rings anymore, I we could turn this into a Silmarillion podcast if you want to, and
Let's
I'm here
just do
for
it.
it.
Let's just do it. And if it,
Anyway,
my dual fandom of this, I was in Oxford last month with the family,
oh,
and so we went out and we did a little Inklings kind of walkabout in Oxford, and then we went north in the Cotswolds, and one of the churches there, the door is the
you
inspiration.
saw it.
Yeah, I saw it.
I want to
Uh,
see it so
Well, okay.
bad.
Well, we'll make plans. It was right
A
next to the
tree.
place where we were staying. It was stunning, stunning, and it was really funny to go like, oh, I don't think I would fit. I might need to be an orc in the Lord of the Rings because me in the doorway, I was like, oh, this is hobbit sized for sure.
Yeah.
Or elfin, however you want to categorize it. And so
In
in
a
this
T.
booth,
Go ahead. Sorry.
no, go right
My
ahead.
AD, my ADHD will just go like, oh, this and this and this, and then I'll cut you off out of my excitement.
No,
I was just
listen, I
gonna
love
say
it.
in Japanese tea culture, they every tea house, the entrance is actually a small little hobbit sized little door, and it's like the door of humility, the door of
Humility to make you bend over.
humility. It's like, you even like the old samurais in the ancient Japan or whatever, it's like it was so they have to take their armor and their sword off to like be able to, and you have to get on your knees to like crawl through, because this is a place of being humbled. And
Yeah.
anyway.
And I think what you're pointing there to me is not a rabbit trail in this conversation, because I think the thing you and I are most curious about in the world, I think, is this idea of kindness and curiosity, which breeds the sense of civility. Because to me, the thing that has enamored me with Japanese culture, or Lord of the Rings, or you moving out to the Pacific Northwest and following the life, it feels very civil. And I mean that like in the like most intricate and connected way, in going, it is civil. It is a great kindness to go like, what does it look like for me to slow down, for me to be present? And as you're saying, I can just imagine like, the Tom Cruise character in The Last Samurai where, they're taking off the garb. And it's like, yeah, there's so much going on. You can't enter into a place of peace dressed as a person of war. And the
Mm.
inside of this tea room is civil and peaceful and connected and slow and beautiful. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious, the first question we ask on the podcast for most of the guests is, what would the 8-year-old version of you be just stoked out of their mind or amazed by what you're getting to experience in this moment? And like, obviously you've shown us this beautiful property and you're in this stunning cabin that you designed yourself, and you're this artist who's gotten to travel the world. And so a lot of people from the outside might go, oh, it's this or this. And people are always surprised when I answer that I could go to Dairy Queen and order a Blizzard anytime I want. That's what
No.
my
Yeah.
8-year-old
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
shocked by, because when we came to the States, we arrived with 2 suitcases and $100, and there just was never enough, money, income, security, all that sort of stuff. So he would be shocked. He'd be like, hey, so can we go get a Blizzard? Be like, hell yeah, I got money. We got it. Let's go.
Let's go.
Basically, I'm now an 8-year-old with a bank account, which is definitely, onset diabetes I need to worry about. But, for you, I'd be curious, like, what is the 8-year-old version of Steven going, hold on, we get to do what? Or, hey, what? Wait, what? What's that thing for you that springs to mind?
Drones.
Yeah, come on,
Oh
talk
my
to us about.
gosh. I mean,
Yeah,
like, come on. Yeah. I mean, you made me think of the movie Blank Check. Remember Disney's Blank
come
Check?
on. Oh, what a great movie.
Shout out to the elder millennials out here, rocking it. If people, you're not a millennial, you're Gen X. I'm like, what?
No,
Zennial. Zennial. How
yeah,
about that? How about
whatever
whatever?
it is.
Um, yeah, blank check where he's just like, oh my gosh, like you feel like you're, you know, Macaulay
Can do
Culkin,
anything. Yeah.
Kevin
Rich
McAllister
be
in New
rich.
York.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cheese pizza all for myself
In the
while I
limo.
ride this limo through New York after hanging out with Donald Trump. So funny. Drones, man. Like I think like when I was 8 was probably when I started. I don't know what year, what age it was, but remember those like old RC remote control helicopters?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
like that was probably like the coolest toy I could ever imagine that I never got. And my parents, I mean, that's no, I was okay. Like Christmas was fun. Like it was all right. Don't feel sorry for me. But a remote control helicopter was not in the picture, and that to me was just so the toy beyond the toy of all toys. And the fact that like, I think about it all the time. I'm just like, man, if I was a kid, I'd be freaking out right now flying this drone, and just like flying it over wherever I want to. I mean, just like and I think that's what I love about the feeling when I'm droning is I'm usually completely by myself out in the wilderness somewhere, I just, but then the sensation of flying, because like if I could have a superpower, it'd be flight.
Yeah.
Like I need to fly, right? Like and I've got a lot of aviation, in my family, and I come from a generations of pilots, and I
Yeah.
could go all on about that, my grandmother and everything, uh but yeah, 8-year-old Stephen would be like,
Yeah. Well, I have to
as
share this
as
with you
are
because
most kids when I have drones around. Like when if
oh,
I
they're
like
freaking
hanging
out.
out with friends' kids or whatever, and they're just like, "You're the person." Like they won't remember dad's friends or whatever from. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh, you're the drone guy. Oh my! Are you bringing your drone when you come over to hang out for the like? Because I'll go and wherever I'm staying, after an event, and I'll go hang out with a friend for a couple, their family and their guest room for a couple of days. And it's just like kids are like, you're the one with the drone.
Yeah.
And
Because
that's how
it's
I feel when I
superpower.
fly it.
Yeah.
It's just like it's funny because it's all about like contemplative, meditative, like slow sweeping, whatever. But when you're in it and you're just soaring over those treetops or over that glacier or over that edge of the mountain and the sun peaks behind it and you know, and it is just such a fun uh childlike wonder feeling. And it also, speaking of Lord of the Rings, like the films, like those films, just like what like especially when I first saw it, um very few films do this for me, but it's just like that's beautiful and amazing. And then now 20 years later I'm able to like
Recreate it.
do shots that look sometimes better, like
Yeah.
especially going to New Zealand, and I go, oh, by the way, in these beautiful places that tourists go, or you go adventure or hiking or whatever, there's Lord of the Rings film locations everywhere. And if it's not a location, it looks like a location because New Zealand is just like one of the most, I mean, it is Middle Earth, So when I'm like flying the drone, especially in the same location, not that I'm trying to recreate every shot, but like I want to it's like I want to go to Rivendell. I want to go to Lothlorien. I want to go to the Shire, and just get those beautiful shots, especially when the sun is low, illuminating the landscape in such an incredible way. I mean, it's just there's a magic to it that you get
That's
to
a
tap
perfect word.
into.
Perfect word. Because I think the beauty of this, right, and this is why I love this question, is that for most of us, what we're trying to do is either we're trying to redeem something that may have felt broken, or we're trying to create something that we hoped would exist in the world. And I can
Mm.
literally just imagine the 8-year-old version of you sitting next to you now going, hold on, the thing that we were obsessed with, this flight, and then the thing that formed us later on, like a movie like Lord of the Rings, where we see unimaginable beauty, we now get to make this in the world for even more people to see. And like you said, the technology keeps on improving. So you're like, well, they could shoot it in this, but now would you like to see it in this? And you're like, I'm now can put a VR headset and an Oculus on or an
Oh,
Apple Vision, and now
yeah.
I'm there in the thing. And how unbelievable is this to go like, not only have we created the world, but now inviting other 8 year olds and all of us to step into that world. And very brief aside here, so my probably favorite show when I was around that age, around 8, was a show called Airwolf, and I had a very uniquely you memory because one of the first times I saw one of your aerial shots, I had this thought like, man, I really wish they would remake it. So for anybody who doesn't know the television show, I think it was like in 80s, 90s in South Africa. Like I got it by the time I think we moved here, and it was this helicopter pilot who like flew, and it was always like them against the Russians sort of thing. But they had these like sleek black helicopters, and he would kind of rise out of a mountain and then has to go fight the other helicopter. And very, again, 8 year old, whoever pitched this show, it was two 8 year olds in the room, and somebody approved the budget on it. But I had this thought of like, I feel like I'm the character from Airwolf when I'm watching Steven's videos because I can see the landscape because you're getting so close and it feels like you're in one of those choppers. And again, it like the Thursday Zoom meeting went away, and the invoice that you have to send got muted for a second, and the thing that you have to do in stepping into traffic in an hour and a half kind of got quieted because in that moment you're just fully in it. And I think that's the beauty again of the 8 year old version of us. We're just so present. We're so whimsical. We're so
Mm,
curious. We're so expectant that these things could actually be a reality. And then when somebody like you, an artist, gets to put somebody in that point and goes, it's real. And you're like, and I think that's just the beauty of that, right?
it's real.
But
It's real. It's really real. You're just
it's
like,
really real. Yeah.
this is a
Yeah.
real place. Like you have a picture in your mind and you can go to national parks and state parks and those are all beautiful, but like there's a lot more out there, you know. And when you hover, when especially when you're able to get that kind of perspective and look down on the landscape, and you're like honestly, we've drones specifically, and I might be wrong on this, but really drones have allowed a certain perspective, especially when it comes to photography or certain types of video footage that was never made possible by even other aerial landscape, like with helicopters and stuff. I mean, you can get a bit, you know, but to be able to hover over and point straight down and stay still and just watch the land do its thing. Um, I mean, the way that forests turn into fractals, the way that braided glacial rivers turn into like this abstract art you would never ever see from the ground. And you're like, is that real? Is that AI, you know, or whatever? Like, no, it's real. And it's such a process of discovery and enjoyment and wonder when you especially if it's a place that you're unfamiliar with that surprises you and it's not like the thing that you've seen on Instagram 100 times and you're like, I want to go to that place and recreate the same shot that everyone else did. Like, fine, whatever, you know, play someone else's song. That's how you learn how to play the piano, right? Like, or a guitar, whatever instrument, you know, like, you know, study the greats, write their, you know, play their sheet music. But you know, so there's nothing wrong with that. But like, go off the beaten path, get outside of the
Yeah.
normal places,
Yeah.
um, and see what it looks like from above, and see what surprises you.
Yeah.
Um, I do have a follow up answer, like a part B answer, but I'll
Yeah.
keep
Give
it
it to
very, 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 very brief. So drones are my, you know, one tool that I use a lot. But the traditionally and still today, the other tool that I use a lot, I mean, other than like phones and computers, are projectors. That's what you alluded to earlier. If people are like, "Who's this guy? Artist of light? What?" That's where we met, was when I was creating like these immersive projection, visual experiences with light. Um, and, sometimes it's a screen or an LED wall or some interesting pattern, that I'm projecting on. Sometimes it is like what I've been doing on tour, recently is, turning these blank and barren Baptist churches into the sphere, a very poor man's version of the sphere, where it's around you on all walls, it's over the ceilings, it's on the screens. It's just kind of this, again, fully immersive visual experience. So 8-year-old Stephen would probably think that's pretty cool because while the rest of my family is doing a good job of singing the hymns and taking notes, taking notes during the sermon and church. I grew up Christian in church, as many of us did. Um, I was drawing roller coasters on the church bulletin. I mean, I'm just like, Stephen, pay attention to the sermon. I'm like, I mean, I am, but I cannot sit ADHD here. And that was before we knew what ADHD was. I mean, I'm just like, I'm just drawing. Also, I'm just a kid sitting in boring church. Like I'm just gonna draw. I'm sorry, my imagination's just like whatever. But then a piece of technology came out that got a few of us in trouble. And there's going to be someone watching this. I know I can feel it through the screen. There's someone who's going to feel this. I see that hand. I see that hand. Who every no, sorry, I'm going to have to joke now. Let's say this is going to trigger and make church people laugh, but like what was it? What was the phrase? Every head
Yeah,
bowed,
every head bowed,
every
every
head
eye
bowed, every
closed.
eye
Yeah.
closed. The invitation, the guilt trip with the hymn that won't stop at the very end. Um, man, triggers. Every head bowed, every eye closed. I want to see, and I'm watching you. I'm watching you, podcast people, you audience, whoever you are, you three of you and Carl's mom, who played with a laser pointer in church, and
Yeah,
who
come
got
on now.
and instantly got in trouble with it, like little red dot or whatever. Green was the coolest. Love a green laser pointer, but red was the standard issue back in the day. Anyway, the fact that like I used to get in trouble for drawing in church and shining lights on the wall, now I get paid to do it
Get
in
paid
church.
to do.
It's like my
So
thing. It's like visual worship, visual theology, creativity, and shining light, on the walls, on the ceilings, on the screens, back at the people, and and people love it. And I'm just like, 8-year-old, I think 8-year-old Stephen would be like, got him. Yes.
yeah, that's
Yes.
the perfect phrase.
And
Be
in the
like,
end, I
got,
won.
I
Got him.
got him, got him. Well, all of that, having gotten to experience that and see a lot of that, the stunning places that you've done that both indoors and outdoors. I've had the pleasure of being in places like Sagrada Familia, where you're like, oh, this was built around this issue of light and color, and the fact that you've done that in places both internal and then external, when it's out literally in the woods and you're projecting this up and it's creating this different environment. For a lot of people, that would be like, oh, you're getting paid to do that. That's success. For other people, they're hear your story and it's like, oh, you're getting on tour buses, and oh, you've met and rubbed shoulders with people whose names would be recognizable as like celebrities in whatever circle that
Mhm.
that person's in. But I'm always curious as we come to this season, in our careers, when you can look back a little bit. You haven't been in it 3 years, you've been in it longer than that. So there's a little bit of history, right? And there's still history, or future history looking forward, because you're still, early in or middle in the career, whatever you want to call it. As you look at the successes, everything has a price, everything has a cost. And so I'd be fascinated as you look at the successes that you've had, what if and you did an audit of what that cost you, what would you say it has cost you? And looking back on it, would you pay the same price or a different price? Would you
Mm.
adjust the bill in some way?
Oh, I mean, drones are expensive, so there is there is a
Especially when you
financial.
crash them. especially when you
There is
crash.
there is, especially when you crash them, but I get insurance, so I'm good. That was a great question. I knew this type of question was coming. I've been thinking on that, like, and maybe I'm just too much of a seven on the Enneagram to like be focused on what the sacrifice was or the cost was. So I kind of struggle with it a little bit. But I do, I want to say a different phrase, like, or explain it this way. As exciting as it's all been, and I get to travel and, rub shoulders with people that would like kill to have dinner with whoever, and I'm just like, oh yeah, there was, when you've done this for a while, it's just like it's very normal. But anyway, to be around certain people that, and industries and conversations and
And hopefully Stephen doesn't mind me saying this. Like my wife would probably spend an untold amount of money to sit and I would too. Let me not lie. One of my favorite thinkers of the last 20, 30 years has been, Beth Moore. And I know that you've spent a lot of time around Beth. And so it's be
yeah,
like, hey, yeah, I'd spend, a grand just to sit and listen to the wisdom of this woman while
right,
she's a cup of coffee in a relaxed state of mind. And you're like, oh, you mean my Tuesday? Yeah, man. Like, what a fascinating human. And then,
right,
like you're
right.
saying, kind of like in the days of me as a musician, it's like, oh, the people that I was like respectful of and enjoyed, other people were so enamored of and put them on a thing that you're like, oh, they're pretty normal. Their coffee order's weird. They've got terrible taste in pizza. They've got a great sense of humor. They're actually much more low key than you'd met. All of these things that again humanizes somebody that somebody might else otherwise elevate.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, Pause, and this is where you're going to edit for a second. Are you hearing, like, I'm not seeing my waveform, my sound on my, when I talk, when I hear you talk, I see your peaking, and then mine is just flat. Are you
You're
seeing?
you're great. Yeah, I've got the waveform here at the bottom.
Good. Okay. I just was like, it's looking dead to me. And as a former podcast host, I'm sitting there like, oh no, we're going to do this whole conversation. And then like, your audio didn't come through. No.
No,
Like, all right.
no, you're doing great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a observation, great observation and point you make. With that, I would say a couple of things. And I'm just going to riff here for a little bit. First off, I've gotten this incredible, like a lot of people in our, industry and people that we know, travel is a big part of the job. Live events, conferences, all kinds of, stuff, being on tour buses. But the cost of that is that you miss out on a lot of things back home. You miss out on a lot of things with family. Most of my family is all in Arkansas. I could live there if I wanted to. I'm choosing to live here. I mean, there's a cost that comes to the job and traveling a lot. There is a cost to building a cabin in the woods in the Pacific Northwest, where I have now got some great community and life around here that I've built on my own, but I do miss out on, a lot of family things. I miss my friends, that are back home. Um, and um, yeah, so the other thing I would say is when you work in, the phrase never meet your heroes. Have you ever, like, yeah, you've ever heard that? Like, it's almost like, no, never meet your heroes, because, they'll disappoint. It's one thing to get an autograph, or like, oh my gosh, I got to have but, I won't say that applies to Beth Moore. And luckily, a lot of people I work with, that I've gotten to know that are well known or whatever, and you get to see the real side, the real side of them, and you get to see who they are off stage and in phone conversations or text or meetings or whatever it is. I have been very, very lucky um, to work with some amazing people who, like Beth, is what you see is what you get. I mean, she is who she is off stage is who she is on stage. Like there is no difference. Of course, she has her personal life where she has to zone out and chill out too, and I've been around her in that moment too, where I'm just hanging out with other people and she's just there, and we're, after an event, we're not flying out for the next day, so we're like, it's me and like her daughter Melissa, who's like one of my best friends now, another friend, and we're kind of like, well, we got an afternoon to kill, and let's go look at some big trees. Let's go hiking. Let's go see some sequoias. While we're in California, and grab some Mexican food afterwards. But like Beth has just gone like whoa with this whole event, and after an event, we give it all. Like all of us in our own rights are giving it all, and we and that and then afterwards comes the adrenaline crash, and sometimes you're just like, I just want to like bed rot or doom scroll or tune out or just like look out the window
Bed
and like,
rot. I love that. That's a
dude,
new one to me.
I love a good rot. You know what it, and
I know
I
exactly
probably
what it is.
worse
That's
at
my
it than everyone else.
phrase.
I don't
Yeah.
have kids, so I know my friends with kids are just like, what's that like? Like I don't have time. But sometimes just laying in bed and just scrolling, I know that's not great for the whatever. It's junk food. It's junk food for the mind. Sometimes I just need to sit and eat some Doritos and drink a Dr. Pepper. Like it is not going to be good for you, but you know.
Uh, it's the
So I
spot.
love it. I love a good rot, once in a while. And anyway, but sometimes you see people that give it all are on stage. They're constantly performing, even at dinners with the team. You know, you're still holding the whole thing together, and they're kind of the center of attention, even though everyone's chill, but like you're still one of the reasons why everyone is here, and it's your boss, too. It's or your pastor or whatever, the dynamic is. But to be in a space where you can allow everyone to just let their guard down and just be like in a safe place and just be like, we're all humans and everyone poops, and everyone just needs to zone out. And I love being a friend or someone where I can allow other people to just safely zone out. You don't have to perform. You don't have to, no one's recording this. You can say things that you're dealing with, and I'm not going to go on Twitter or the whoever and be like, get out of my face. Why would I do that? Why? And I hate it when people do that. So anyway, but going back to like, what does it cost? I do look back. I'm explaining a lot of the good, that you see behind the scenes, but there's a lot of bad and there's a lot of ugly as well. And so the cost is, it's the Wizard of Oz, and you're looking at the man behind the curtain, and you're seeing how the sausage is made sometimes, and um, and there's a lot of I got to say over and over again, there's so much good out there and people, and I could go on and on about the amazing people who they are on stage is who they are off stage, and you get a little bit more of their personal life. But then especially working in the industry, and every industry has, and we're all humans. Humans are going to human no matter what, no matter what industry, faith, no faith, whatever. But man, you do see things that you cannot unsee, and you hear things that you cannot unhear, and there's really some really disappointing things out there, that can contribute to my cynicism
Mhm.
and cause you to be very frustrated or angry, or kind of everyone's praising this person online, and you're just like, or this band or this whoever, and you're just like, yeah, screw them, That's a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
harsh, but or you're just kind of like, no, I know a different side of that story, and it causes a lot of disillusionment and disenchantment. I think part of that is our culture's problem with celebrity and putting people up on a pedestal and expecting so much of them.
Mhm.
This is especially prevalent in churches with personality driven celebrity, you know, Christians and pastors and influencers and.
Mhm.
And that has caused me to struggle with it as well. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm so happy to be on this podcast, and I would absolutely say yes to this type of opportunity and other people, and I have before. But there is this thing happening in the attention economy, both in the church and outside of the church, where it's just so like me focused, and there's so much navel gazing, and there's so much personal branding happening, and there's good things. I mean, I'm got a marketing degree. You're into marketing, right? Like that is a good thing. Um, but I've just seen I've just seen it done and have been a part of and recognized in myself some things that I don't like, when it comes to that. And so you can't unsee those things. And so what is that sacrifice? What does that cost? I mean, it's kind of like you want to step on the other side of the industrial veil, so to speak, and see things from behind the scenes, from backstage. Um, be prepared to be disappointed with some people,
Yeah.
and then be prepared to be, you know, disappointed in yourself, because then all of a sudden you realize you're just doing this all the time, and then you're realizing maybe there's something going on with me too. you know
Mhm.
Maybe I don't like how I'm thinking all the time. I don't like the words that came out of my mouth. I don't like And so it's that is another reason why I wanted to kind of get out of Nashville a little bit, because there was just it's there so much, the good, the bad,
Yeah.
and the ugly, where I was like, I need to like quiet the mind. I need to slow down. I need to reconnect. I need to find out who I am as a person. I need to, in a sense, just rediscover my faith, and let my faith and my art and my work kind of get they're very attached and inform each other, but sometimes they can get so tangled together that it's just like I need it to separate a little bit, in a
Mhm.
sense. And I need to
Mhm.
clear the voices in my head and on my screen all the time, with social media. And yeah, and so part of it, I think, is just growth, you know um but the sacrifices is that, yeah, there is going to be some disappointment and some disillusionment. And
Mhm.
that is a cynicism's a very powerful drug, as someone once said. So that's
Mhm.
not my quote, someone else said
Yeah.
that. Hell of a drug. Hell of
Hell
a
of a
drug.
drug. Mhm.
Very addictive.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I don't really know what to say after that, but I had to come to face with that a bit more, and realize, I if keep doing the same thing in the same context, I can see a high probability of me becoming someone that I don't think over time, like I think that's something that, like, I don't know if 8-year-old Stephen would be disappointed in, because I don't think 8-year-old Stephen was thinking about the things that I think about these days, or
Yeah.
whatever. But but there is a sense of like taking inventory of yourself and taking a step back and looking in the mirror and just being like, ugh, it's a lot of
Yeah.
good
It
and
is.
it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun, but like, ugh, there's this area of who I'm becoming, that I don't really love that. And I want to be a little bit more proactive in addressing those things, um, not just through practices, but just the environment that you're putting yourself in, the type of home you're creating for yourself, the type of people that you're surrounding with, the type of people that you're working with. Like, there's a lot of opportunities to work with people that I'm like, I don't want to work with them. I am not working with that record label or that manager or that band ever again. Like, I don't care how successful they are, or how people,
It's just too high. Yeah. The cost is
it's
too
like,
high.
yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Y'all
Yeah.
have fun.
Well,
Peace be
and,
with
and
you.
also, I'd like to remain good and keep on growing in the right direction. And I know that that won't continue because I think the thing that I'm also hearing, and the thing you've learned, and the thing that it cost you and that you'd pay again as well, is this idea of one of the most dangerous questions I think you can ask yourself or anybody else, which is, what's it like being on the other side of me? And so I don't know that
Mm.
the 8-year-old would be asking this, but the current version of ourselves is asking this, if we're healthy, is going, would, if I was introduced to me, Carl, today at 45 on this Friday at the end of July in 2026, would I be interested in a friendship with me?
Hmm.
And that's asking, what is it like on the other side of me? And obviously I was like, well, I want to know what my wife thinks and my kids think. But more pivotal than all of that is like, what do I think? To your point, am I growing in a direction that goes not only today, but 6 months, 5 months, 5 years, 5 decades from now? Is that somebody who would have continued to go, oh, it is lovely to be on the other side of me. It is interesting. It is intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, relationally stimulating. And for me first, and to your point, it's like, if I'm getting bored, which also means I'm getting bored of being me in this container, well, the only person I'm left with at the end of the night, even when the lights turn off and I'm in a different season with a wife and kids, but I still go to bed with myself and my own thoughts. By the time she's fallen asleep and I'm about to fall asleep, I'm still yet again in my own head experiencing myself. And so, I think it does beg a very dangerous question, which is, what's it like on the other side of me? And I think somebody like you has gone, oh, one of the keys to that is some silence, and it's a little bit of solitude, and it's a little bit of stillness, all of which your physical environment has helped provide, obviously, in spades. And so I'm curious, as we look at those two questions, the last one that I'd love to ask, if we've, I think you've got time to, is that all right? Can I ask you one more
Oh
question?
man, go for it. TGIF.
Um,
Got all the time.
that's
We're
right.
good.
That's right.
It's a Friday,
Um,
so.
as you're thinking through, obviously the name of my company is Curiosity. You and I have asked each other dozens of questions of our friendship, and we've asked a couple today. So this might feel like a really big kind of meta question, but as you look back at your
Mm.
life, whether it was, hey, how do you take your coffee? Or I wonder what, I'm going to do with my life, or I wonder if I should live in the Pacific Northwest. There are little and big questions that have outsized effects on our life. If I were to
Mm.
ask you, what do you think is a pivotal question that somebody asked in a season of your life that really affected you in a way that was pivotal, that you could hand to somebody else? What do you think is a truly great question, all the way from how do you take your coffee to what are you doing in the next 5 years of your life? That when I ask that question, it doesn't have to be the best or the greatest question, but it's the one that kind of comes screaming to the front of your mind as, oh,
Right.
I thought this was a really important question to me and my life.
That's a great question. Thanks for asking it. Yeah, I'll give you three answers if that's okay.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
there's one.
Listen, three
There's
for the
one.
price of one.
There's one that jumps to mind straight away. That is, I don't remember if it was ever actually asked as a question, but the way it was said to me felt like it was a question in that moment. It was kind of it was a statement or an invitation or a question that determined, really was pivotal for the direction, my pace and my style of art and everything. Then there is a follow up question that comes to mind. And then there's a fun one, that you alluded to earlier, but I'll save the last one as our little cherry on the top dessert answer. So, um, both first off, I would say when I think about those questions, they were always asked by um, mentors of mine, older men. I Beth and I, nothing against women. Like, I have women in my life too. I don't want to be like these old men, but there
These
are
old
there are some there are some old, like, father like figures or older brother, fun uncle, type figures that um have also worked in the space that I've worked in. Maybe they're not doing projection mapping and flying drones, but they have worked in sacred space and immersive spaces and leading worship in churches and faith and the tension of it all. And they're kind of black sheep figures themselves that are kind of constantly asking inconvenient questions of the system and of the matrix. And so I will say that the foundation of this answer will be that having mentors and older people in your life is so that has been so um, fundamentally and foundationally important to who I am and who I have become, who I want to be as well. And the first question that my friend and mentor Mark Pearson in New Zealand, who is the author of The Art of Curating Worship, Reshaping the Role of Worship Leader, and he for decades has been curating sacred space in very immersive ways, very tactile, interactive, analog. Like he creates stations that people go to, and just he helps people engage with creativity and their faith in a way that it's simple, but it's outside of the box. And he's a huge fan of humility and curiosity, so much that he we talked about Japanese tea houses earlier. He built a Japanese tea house in his backyard, and he created a door of humility, like a little hobbit hole, like you have to crouch down. And every time I go to New Zealand and I stay with him and his family, we always have get to go into the tea house and have tea a couple of times. And so when my first trip to New Zealand, I've been like, it's like another home to me. I've been 13 times now.
On my
It's
list, like number
crazy.
number 2 on my list. I got to go.
Yeah, I've gotten to go there for festivals and conferences and then a drone the rest of it. you know. Anyway, I've seen a lot of New Zealand. It's amazing. But the first time I went, I believe this was in 2010, where I went to this church and we did kind of a workshop. He and I did this co-workshop led with their team, just talking about creativity, worship, projection, media, tech, whatever. um, and then we created this big like uh, night of worship gathering, like a concert, for the church. And we got projectors out everywhere, and I'm just like, part of my art form is like, one description is VJing video, like a video jockey, where you're just like taking all kinds of different imagery and clips and whatever, and you're mixing them together and you're blending them together all in real time, right? Um, and I love doing stuff like that, and it never happens the same way twice. And anyway, but you know, especially coming from Nashville, where everything is go, 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 like fast pace, you're on the go all the time. Church music is just starting to amp up and just become like massive concerts. And it's wild to see how church music has become such a massive music industry situation. Um and I remember when people were like, there's no way, it's like, well, and now look, it's the biggest part of the music industry now. And so I will kind of create these like real time, on the go, like freestyled music video, conceptual visual experiences with the music. And I'm like, I see myself as almost like one of the musicians. Like if the drummer's going in, like uh you know I'm building up the energy of the I'm trying to find a clip that like matches the energy of the music. Anyway, I was just going and going and going and going with my artistry. And then I afterwards we're talking and we're driving home, reflecting on the experience. And he's like, yeah, yeah, that was very interesting, very wonderful. You did a great job, like. And he said whether I had asked him for, is there anything you didn't like, or maybe he just volunteered it or whatever. Whatever, however he said it, here is the answer to the question, or the question that was asked was, what would it look like to slow down? What would it look like? Or he basically, I'm just going to rephrase what he said as the question. What would it look like to put a photograph on the screen and just let that be the only thing that happens for an entire song? And and if that might not be revolutionary to some people, or whatever, but to me in that moment, it was a like, you're right. Oh wow. And I think that I was just so like ADHD and like go, go, go. And like, let's stir up the dopamine hits, and like this thing needs to move and this thing needs to move. And then, okay, this thing has been moving for a chorus and stanza, and I need it to change over to this, and it needs to change colors and it needs to change dynamic, and I need to blend in a different thing. And because the second verse mentioned this. And so like, I want to pull that image into it. And yeah, that's great on a lot of songs, but there are these moments where it's like, God, over the course of an hour, hour and a half, you're just constantly being visually stimulated with motion. And it's not leading you to a place of rest. And it's not leading you to a place of calm and peace. And I think that's one problem with, a lot of modern, you know, church music and sacred space, is that we're trying to entertain you to death. Like, we're trying to be Taylor Swift. And it's like, good luck, or whatever it is, whatever the artist is. And I'm all for a good experience and a good concert, but there has to be dynamic ranges. And and in that, I think about narrative arcs, and I think about dynamic ranges, and like there's mountains and there's valleys, just like the landscape. You got to have these moments, and it's okay to just sit in silence and stillness, or just look at a simple photograph and to allow it to just absorb and sit. But my dopamine addiction was just constantly needing me to move on to the next thing. So what would it look like to slow down? What would it look like to sit with an image in stillness? And even though the music is still moving, the music is moving, people are singing, things are still moving around you. But like visually, let's just lock in and focus on something. And that I can trace back to, yeah, he always has a sneaky way, and mentors do this. And mentors have a little sneaky way of just, especially gently with grace, and sometimes not so gently, you know, bam, just like a little, what about that? Like it, just hit a little spot, ask a little question, present an idea that takes root, and turns that seed grew into a forest of my life, you know, because it wasn't just how can I do concerts or church or projection, in a more refined, mature way, where it's like, it's not just eye candy, spiritual eye candy, whatever it is the whole time, but it's actually like it's shifting from entertainment,
Yeah.
leaning to like art,
Yeah.
like going to an art gallery and just sitting with an image and letting it speak to you.
I think that's the difference, right, between entertainment and enthralling. To entertain, you can be a spectator and just how high can I get the dopamine, to your point. To enthrall is to captivate, which
Yeah.
requires, again, a sense of surrender to your own dopamine, the speed, all of those sorts of things. And that movement, like you said, from motion picture to a still image, like from movement to stillness, from loud and cacophony to silence. I think it's
Mhm.
such a beautiful invitation from the mentor, and for you to accept that. Like, what would it like? What would it look like to slow down?
What would it look like? And it was like, that applied to the art form and the concert and all that. But then it started to realize over time, oh, this is a picture of my life. Like, my artwork is an expression of how I'm living, what my life is like. What would it look like? if I slowed down? What would it look like if I still have to travel and I still have to do my stuff? But what would it look like to sit still and practice some silence and be a little bit more rooted, And yeah, it's that kind of question that really pivoted me to a different pace of life, not only in my artistry, but in my way of living and my way of seeing the world. That there is so much beauty. It's like walking into a cathedral versus like the Sphere in Las Vegas. I love the Sphere. I've been to the Sphere. Give me that
Unbelievable.
screen. Give me that screen. Let me do
Yeah.
some damage and
Yeah. Yeah.
a budget and a budget because that's a big screen. That big screen needs a budget. But the Sphere, and of course, there's opportunities to do this with screens. But when you walk into a cathedral, it is sensory overload, but not in a way that's trying to like overstimulate you and fire off all the dopamines. It's actually slowing you down and causing you to lift your gaze upward and to feel like you are sitting still and being reconnected to something that is so much bigger than yourself. And that's what I want to do both in my artistry and the live events I create, the videos that I create, or whatever it is that I'm doing. So I want it to be true of my life as well. I want it to be like stepping into a cathedral where you're just like, and your voice gets quieter, your words get slower or fewer, your pace slows down. Sometimes you just want to go pick a random pew and just sit and be. And um yeah, so uh that's one question that has really
It's a
messed
great
with
one.
me in a good way. The second one, and I'll be a bit quicker on this for time, but the second one was another mentor of mine, Roy Cochran, down in Carlsbad, California. And we'd be driving around and talking about all sorts of stuff and dreaming. And he at one point they had a jacuzzi hot tub or whatever that we would go and enjoy, and under a tree, and he'd pour this nice whiskey, and we're just sitting looking up at the stars, drinking whiskey in a hot tub, and just like you know we need to be dream. It's like he's an artist himself, so we're just sitting there like, man, what's really messing with me is like we need to be dreaming bigger dreams. We need to be dreaming bigger dreams. And he's just looking at the backyard. What could we do this? What could we turn my backyard into a place to host artists every month, and gather people and have wonderful food and amazing wine and art and stories and music, and but the question he asked me was, you are constantly supporting everyone else in their artistry and their music. You're showing up and supporting the musician, the speaker, the author, the event. You have clients that you work for, and collaborators. But what would it look like? What would it look like for the model to be flipped and for you to create your own experience and your own art that is Stephen Proctor, that is you, that other people show up and support you, or at least you take the charge and lead. And I was just like, oh man, that's a crazy wild dream that'll never happen, or be too hard to go after. I'm a little lazy at times. I think I'm just tired because I'm just like, I don't want to do anything more right now. I've
Giving
done
all
enough.
that genius to everybody else. The
I've given
idea of
it.
giving
I've
it to
given it.
yourself is too hard.
I've given it to everyone else,
Yeah.
and usually with an invoice on the back end of
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
hopefully. But
Hopefully.
yeah, no, it was the question of like, what would it look like for you to have your own, original experience, and for people to show up because you have an idea of something to do, and that's something that haunted me for a really long time, and I would just sit with, and I'm just like, I mean, I've got some ideas, I've got some abstractions of ideas, and the type of music and the type of imagery and the type of space. And then slowly and slowly, just like as I show up to places, like I'm helping create a big worship opener for this festival and supporting some bands and teaching a seminar or something. Like I love all that stuff. But that festival in New Zealand, which is happens to be 6 miles down the road from the Hobbiton movie set out on this farm, and it's called Festival One, and it's like this is the modern day Shire, like with modern day hobbits from New Zealand, and they've all pitching their tents and camping out and having parties, and it feels almost like a modern day like Bilbo Baggins party with a big party tree. And I was like, so there's a forest here on this farm, a pine forest, and there's a forest stage, and there's bands playing and doing their thing, and sometimes some evening things. And I was like, you know what I really want to do is project on those trees and just play vibey instrumental music and everyone chill out and just lay in hammocks and slow down, and sit with this immersive experience that is unexpected. Uh, have you ever seen light projected on trees and patterns swirling up the bark and out the branches, and and letting it just splash and filter and create depth? And again, like it's like a cathedral, like a luminous cathedral out in nature. Uh, to me, forests are cathedrals, and cathedrals are just another forest, you know, and it's all sacred. It's all in how we see it, and how we engage with it. And I love the work of re-enchanting the world around us, not because the world needs re-enchanting, but I think we are the ones in need of re-enchantment. We need to. There's a William Blake quote that I'll probably butcher, and that's like um, if the doors of perception are cleansed, we see everything as it truly is. We see reality as it truly is, infinite. The doors of perception need to be cleansed, and we've got scales on our eyelids, peoples. I know I do, and between social media and all the disillusionment and politics and religion and scandals, and there's all the external things happening in the world around us, and then there's our own lives, that we're having to deal with as well. um I think we've become so disillusioned and disenchanted. And so how do my work is, whether it's in a forest or a cathedral, a drone video you're watching, a Beth Moore conference, I don't care what it is, I want to help re-enchant us.
Yeah, come
I want
on.
to
Yeah,
illuminate us. That's the name of my company. Your curiosity, I'm illuminate.
yeah,
Illuminate us.
I
And I
love
want to
this.
illuminate the world around us, to shine a light in the darkness, sometimes very literally. And darkness is my friend because I can shine lights into it. I'm not scared of it. And but no, it's
So this
yeah,
idea of dreaming bigger, like what could
it's
we dream?
it's,
What could we dream
it's
bigger?
dreaming bigger, and like what is it that you're bringing to the
Mm,
table that is uniquely you.
you,
And
yeah.
I've gotten a chance to do that at a festival with a forest and projections, and I've done it 3 years in a row. That has Posting that online turned into a music video. I've been working with a band called Hammock, Mark Bird and Andrew Thompson there in Nashville, ambient post rock. I've gotten to get into album covers with still images. Talk about sitting with a still image, and not just video that's entertaining you with music. And I love all that, but like, here's an image that is going to just sit and represent this journey that you're going to go on. So I've been getting into a lot of album artwork lately. But yeah, he saw the images of the projection on the forest and was like, that'd be a really interesting music video. Can we do a music video out of that? So we did a music video, and I got projectors out in my own little forest and illuminated the dark world around me, and made the coolest video I've ever made in my entire life, from that. And then that idea from the forest in New Zealand also translated to this. I got the incredible opportunity to work with Comment Magazine for their inaugural festival called The Understory, that took place at the Washington National Cathedral, of all places. Like, what? And they were like, my friend Tiffany that works there, she was like, so what would you think about doing projection mapping in the Washington National Cathedral? And I'm like,
Mm.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I'm going to need a lot of laser pointers for that church. And so we got a lot of projectors, and for a whole evening, just turned the cathedral into a forest. The understory is the imagery of what's happening, not just on the camp up above the forest and which tree is the highest, but the real life and growth is happening on the forest floor. And then I asked the question, like, what would it? Okay, Roy's question, what would it look like to create a unique experience that was haunting me? I was like, hey, Tiffany, so I've been doing this thing in New Zealand with projection on trees. Cathedral is just another forest. What if I did the same thing I did in the forest, but in the cathedral, and just made it into like a sound bath with light, like a light and sound bath uh, of just music and imagery, and people can just, especially when you're at an event, a festival, or a conference, it's a lot of speakers, it's a lot of bands, it's a lot of poetry, it's a wonderful stuff, but it's a lot of content that you're listening to and engaging with, right? But what does it look like to sit still and to just bathe and meditate in beauty and light and music, and just for a whole hour just look up and wonder and re-enchant that imagination? And she's like, I love it, let's do it. And I'm like, oh, cool. And I was like, what would it look like if it wasn't just me hitting a playlist on Apple Music of really great music, but there was like a live musician and a composer that I'm working with? So I brought my friend Hannon Townsend, incredible film composer that you might know his work from, if anyone's into Terrence Malick films like The Tree of Life and To the Wonder. And uh, he's become one of Malick's go-to composers. He's also from New Zealand. All wonderful, wonderful country. But we've been working on some interesting projects, and including album vinyl design, and for his latest record. But um, beautiful, beautiful instrumental music with some big epic things that he's been scoring, that take people on this amazing journey. And we called it Fos Hilleron, which was the name of the first name of the hymn of the first, the name of the first hymn from the early church. Fos Hilleron, which is O gladsome light. Now we are come to the sun's hour of rest. The lights of evening round this shine. We hymn the Father, Son, and Spirit divine. And just what would it look like to create a song of light, and for people to just sit for a whole hour and just experience beauty in an unexpected, immersive way? That, again, like, pointing back to the question that Mark said, what would it look like to slow down? So I then, through my art, am trying to ask that question without asking the question. Hey, what would it look like for us in the middle of this conference to slow down and rest? And yeah, and so that was a very
stunning.
surreal
Yeah.
experience. There's Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, but
so
I probably have another good question. I think you had teased us with one last one. Do you
one
have
last one. I
please?
just see that the last little drop
Last drop gone for the
of my
last
morning
question.
coffee, and that is the last thing I wanted to leave us with on this question. How do you take your coffee? You know, um, I went to New Zealand the first time I went to New Zealand in 2010. That same trip, I experienced, before anyone else in the world was talking about it, especially America, the flat white
Ah,
coffee perfected. Not
yeah.
this foamy, not this foamy cappuccino crap, and not this huge milk soup jug of a latte, but the perfect, it's more like a cortado, but a little bit bigger. That perfect blend of cream, velvety microfoam that just blends well with the crema.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm. Now,
Flat
my
whites, and now this is just pour over coffee. Now I love a good flat white when I go to a coffee shop, but at home I just do like pure, unadulterated pour
It's the
over.
real deal. Yeah.
You know, uh,
Yeah.
and I could trail off on all kinds of rabbit holes on coffee and the things that it has taught me about creativity in life, but that's going to take another podcast. It's me playing
Well,
with
I
fire.
deeply appreciate all of these questions. It is interesting. My brother in Spain has now decided to take his take on the flat white, and instead of using whatever dairy product they use, I guess heavy cream as the dollop on the top. And the
Uh-huh.
name for that is now a fat white, which he thinks is hilarious and delicious.
That
And so he
actually is amazing.
he
Like,
goes into his favorite little shop, yep, just outside of
flat white.
Mijas, and they know him now. And he orders his fat white, and it's delicious. It's delicious.
That's amazing.
Well, Stephen, man, you're such a gift to me and to the world, and
Oh,
this idea
thanks.
of re-enchantment. And so I deeply appreciate you taking so much time with us because it really is a gift. And in this idea, it does make me think of you. You talked about, I think it was your William Blakely quote. The other one that comes to mind around that re-enchantment is Lewis, and this will be a terrible paraphrase, where C.S. Lewis says, "We are like kids who are playing." In the ditches and making mud pies when what is offered to us is a holiday by the sea.
Mm,
And the beauty of
yeah.
this, right, is this thing of moments like this, hopefully in the podcast, hopefully all of these questions that have gotten you here, like, what would slowing down look like? What would dreaming bigger look like? What's your favorite cup of coffee? Or what's your favorite drink? All of these questions have built you and led you to this place where today, hopefully, we've made an invitation to the people on the podcast to go, what does it look like? What
Hmm.
does it feel like just to do that? Jimmy Carr puts it, a couple times a day. What does it look like to make sure your head is where your feet are? And I think just a lovely invitation and a lovely question. And so thank you for adding another couple of great questions to the conversation at large. It's a
Yeah,
real
thanks,
treat.
man. Just great questions lead to great, better questions. And then Mark Pearson, my mentor, he says in his book, The Art of Curating Worship, he was like, the main problem that church has today, and many of us have today, is that it's not that we need to be doing this better and this better and this better. It's just that we need to be asking better questions. That is the heart of it. Um, can I end us with a little, just to bring it back to Middle Earth?
Please do.
Um, can I put a little bow on it from
Yeah,
a
close us
quote
out.
a
Yeah, close
quote
us
from Lord of the Rings?
out. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I got to get the book off the shelf real fast.
And by the
I
way, before
have.
closes us out here as he comes to find his book and read us out, I would implore you to go find his work online. And then also, his book is stunning. And so, for
Oh,
those
yeah.
people who are
I wrote a
looking for,
book.
yeah, he's got a
Hold
book,
on.
and it's actually as
Shameless
an
plug time. Shameless
a
plug
privilege,
time. Here we go.
you're
as
invited.
soon as as soon as I moved into this house, I landed some kind of book deal, that my friend Paul Pastor was like, "Want to write a book?" And I was like, "No." He was like, "Yeah, you should write a book with
You want
photos
to
and
write a book?
stuff." And I was like, "Okay, well, let's see what that looks like." So here it is. Shameless plug. Wild Wonder: What Nature Teaches Us About Slowing Down and Living Well. And it's only $20. In fact, I think it's 13 on Amazon right now. But
And it
yeah, it's
deserves
all
a place
my
on your shelf. It's
photo
stunning. Yeah,
photos, braided rivers in New Zealand, Iceland, with some stories and reflections, a lot of Japanese tea ceremony
yeah.
stuff as
All right.
well. So
All right, Stephen, I'm going
um,
to go buy your copy, and then it can sit on top of Garrison Keeler's In Search of Lake
right on
Worth.
top,
Yeah, just right
right
on
on
top.
top of it.
Stephen's.
Get some color in that world. I'm
That's
just
right.
kidding.
That's right.
Okay, so thanks for that, by the way. Yeah, that was, yeah, getting to share these stories and ask questions and present questions, and every so much of what we've talked about, I got to put a lot of that into this book, in the stories and in the photos. And and I just gotta say, like, and you're doing a book as well, and so you're the feeling in this digital age where everyone's just like scrolling past everything on Instagram and YouTube and whatever, like you're just hoping for 3 seconds of attention and a like or a share or whatever, like and subscribe, smash that button, all that. For something to exist in the physical world that's offline, and then you just get to let people sit with that photo, it's like it goes back to that Mark Pearson question. What does it look like to just sit with a single photo? What does that do to you? What does the landscape do to you? And just to kind of drink your coffee however you like to take it, and just exhale and allow a little bit more, hopefully some re-enchantment into your home. And speaking of homes, and kind of putting the bow on top of this, I'm going to get a copy of part of the, oh no, part of the back cover literally just fell off. It's Tolkien. Oh no, it's Tolkien's, got to type that. It's Tolkien's pipe just fell off, because this is first edition paperback edition in America from the 70s or 60s. I need to look. This was my Uncle Steve's. This is who I was named. I was named after my Uncle Steve, who passed away in a farming accident before I was born. And so it's who I'm named after. And when my grandma died, and we were going through all her stuff and cleaning out the house, we found the Lord of the Rings books. And my mom goes, "Oh, that's my brother Steve's old Lord of the Rings books. Like, he loved that book." And I was like, "He was into Lord of the Rings too? What? Can I have those?" So my Uncle Steve's Lord of the Rings tattered uh, paper books is here on the shelf in my home that I named Rivendell because I'm a nerd. But I want to go to part of the Rivendell passage in the Fellowship of the Ring. And I think this is really sums up Rivendell. To me, really sums up what I'm after here. I'm able to name it this way of life, the type of home I want to live in, the type of art and experience that I want to bring to the world, the type of hospitality I want to give to people, at least on my good days. And it was summed up like with this in the chapter Mini Meetings. Frodo was now safe in the last homely house east of the sea. That house was, as Bilbo had long ago reported, a perfect house, whether you like food or sleep or storytelling or singing or just sitting and thinking best, or a pleasant mixture of them all. Merely to be there was a cure for weariness, fear, and sadness. So my question for everyone else, you were asking good questions. My question would be like, what would it look like to live in Rivendell, and to bring Rivendell to your own life, to your own home, and to the world around you?
And with that, we close. Stephen Proctor, a real, real treat. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Carl. Really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Talk to you soon. Cheers.
See ya.